FM. Online. GoBrave.org. A tune-in radio station. Part of the William Patterson Broadcast Network.
Broadcasting live from Hobart Hall in Wayne, New Jersey.
This is
The Innovative.
I think they're really unique.
The Fearless.
They have awesome variety.
The Kick-Ass.
I love Brave New Radio.
The Sensational.
I've never heard anything like it.
This is the one and only Brave New Radio.
The views and opinions expressed on this show are solely those of the hosts and guests and are not necessarily supported by WP 88.7 FM, station management, or the station owner, William Patterson University. Anyone wanting to offer differing opinions may do so by calling this show at 973-720-2738. Abusive callers will be rejected. Now here's your program on WP 88.7 FM, Brave New Radio.
Well, good morning, good morning. Good morning to you. And yes, once again, it is Saturday, and you can hear the sound of this voice. You're listening to another edition of The Reading Circle with your host, Marc Medley. Another week has passed, and we are back behind the microphones again. And it is time again for The Reading Circle. My guest is on the line. She is waiting in the wings. I'm going to go ahead and open up as we always do. We call it our morning ritual and routine on Saturday mornings. I'm going to share the weather with you. I'm going to read from 2 books, introduce my guest, share some information with you, and our interview will be underway. So we're not going to waste any more time, or shall I say, without further ado, the weather right now here in the Wayne, New Jersey area is clear, 25 degrees. We're working our way up to a high of 40. Some sun, then clouds, and we're going to come back down tonight, low of 27. Then on tomorrow, Sunday, March the 6th, clouds give way to some sun. 43 is a high, 28 is a low. On Monday, partly sunny and breezy, 55 as a high, 39 as a low. Then on Tuesday, warmer with partial sunshine. We're going to zoom all the way up near 70, 67 degrees as a high, 45 degrees as a low. And rounding out the forecast on Wednesday, partly sunny, nice and warm again, 68 as a high, 44 as a low. Well, that is the weather brought to you right here from the WP 88.7 FM Weather Center. We read from 2 books to kick the show off. The first being written by Joyce Myers, The Power of Being Thankful, 365 Devotions for Discovering the Strength of Gratitude. For today, March 5th, Joyce says, "Sing to the Lord, O you saints of his, and give thanks at the remembrance of his holy name." Praise, worship, and thanksgiving are some of the simplest ways we can pray, and yet they are powerful spiritual dynamics. They are types of prayer because they are expressions of our hearts toward the Lord. When we praise, worship, or give thanks, we are talking to God, and that's all prayer really is. Praise, worship, and thanksgiving enhance and empower our prayer lives because they keep our hearts focused on the Lord instead of on ourselves. They allow us to connect with God in passionate ways and to encounter his presence in our everyday lives. We do not need to wait for a church service or a corporate gathering in order to experience or express praise, worship, and thanksgiving. We can incorporate them into everything we do all day long. Prayer of thanks. Father, I thank you that I can come to you in praise, worship, and thanksgiving all day through the day. Help me to keep my heart focused on you instead of the circumstances around me. Thank you that you hear me and you are pleased with my prayer. praise. That's from the book, The Power of Being Thankful, 365 Devotions for Discovering the Strength of Gratitude. From Iyanla Van Zant's book, Until Today, for March 5th, she says, I open my heart and mind to be aware everyone who grows up does not become an adult. There are people who walk around in grown-up bodies who are not adults. Often they are people of advanced age and accomplishments. Wow, I think we're seeing that during this presidential race. They can be people you trust with your life and worldly possessions. You may leave your children in their care. In fact, if you are not observant, you may find yourself sleeping with one. Because you are unaware, you expect these grown-ups to act in an adult manner, like we are with our presidential candidates. Then, in a moment of dire need, when you least expect it, you discover that this very grown-up person has no concept of what it means to be an adult. The results can be quite mind-boggling. An adult is a person who is able to accept total responsibility for themselves and their actions. They don't blame other people for what they cannot do. They don't employ excuses to cover what they have done or not done. An adult is a person who is not afraid to say what it is on their mind and say it without attacking you. Gee, I tell you, I'm going to mail this off to our candidates. Adults have a sense of clarity that will keep them calm. Adults will give themselves the benefit of the doubt, knowing that they are human. Because adults accept and acknowledge their own humanness, they can accept and acknowledge yours. Adults do not strive for perfection. They see things as they are and accept them. Adults do not fall apart in the face of disappointment. They answer frustration with patience. Adults know how to take care of their physical, mental, and emotional needs, and they are able to put their needs aside in order to handle an emergency. An adult is a person whose attention is not totally focused on their wants and needs. God gets some attention, the adults get some, and you can have the rest. Until today, you may have been confused about the difference between a grown-up and an adult. Just for today, spend some time examining yourself to ensure you are developing adult qualities and behaviors. Today, I'm devoted to growing into adulthood. Now, I was teasingly inserting the parts about the presidential candidates because there has not been one time in my lifetime of any presidential race that I've seen more grown-ups acting like children. So that was apropos for this morning and certainly fit what I've been seeing in these various debates as they've been going along. All right, well, it is time now for me to introduce my guest for the morning. As I said, she's already on the line. She called in right on time, the time that was appointed. And there's none other than Miriam Kelly Ferguson. And Miriam Kelly Ferguson was born and raised on the eastern shores of Maryland. A graduate of Morgan State University, is a past participant of the Hurston Wright Foundation's Fiction Workshop. She is a fellow of the North Country Institute and Retreat for Writers of Color, and a member of the esteemed Harlem Writers Guild. Her writings have appeared on Harlem World Magazine, Impact News, Pire magazine, and Hamilton Stone Review. Miriam Kelly Ferguson was a featured panelist at the 2014 Congressional Black Caucus, and we welcome Miriam to the microphones of the Reading Circle with Marc Medley. Miriam, good morning.
Good morning.
Good to have you here this morning. I'm glad that you were able to rise and join us.
I'm happy to be with you also.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what, hang on. I'm going to share some information with the listening audience. Listening audience, you know what to do during this time. If you're a new listener, I'll let you know what we do whenever I play what we call a public service announcement. I need you to get on all your social media sites and let someone know that Miriam is on the line with me. Let someone know that Miriam is going to be on the Reading Circle and they need to tune in to gobrave.org. And if they're in the northern New Jersey area, on FM radio, WP 88.7 FM. So hang out. Don't you dare move. Let someone know Miriam's on the line. I'm going to share this with you and then we will resume.
If you own a gun, you have a full-time responsibility. When you aren't using it, be sure it can't get into the hands of curious children, troubled teenagers, a thief, or anyone else who might misuse it. Your family, friends, and neighbors are all counting on you. Remember, always, lock it up. For more information on firearm storage safety, visit ncpc.org. This message brought to you by the National Crime Prevention Council, the Bureau of Justice Assistance, and the Ad Council. Think carrying 10 or 20 pounds of extra weight isn't much? We went to a park, handed 10 and 20-pound sandbags to people aged 45 to 60, and asked if we could follow them around.
10 pounds makes a big difference. Oh, I definitely felt it in my knees.
A few extra pounds each year can cause joint pain and lead to serious chronic diseases like diabetes and heart disease. Wouldn't you like to drop that weight and stop picking up more? Visit hhs.gov/1 pound at a time to find out how. Obesity happens 1 pound at a time. So does preventing it. Brought to you by HHS and NIH.
All right, I trust you did what I asked you to do, and that was to get on all your social media sites. Let someone know that the Reading Circle is on the air live on WP 88.7 FM, and we are heard around the world, anywhere on the globe that internet connectivity is available. You have a pair of speakers and your computer on. If you go to gobrave.org and hit the Listen Now button, you can hear Miriam and I this morning anywhere you are on the globe. So be it Africa, be it Europe, be it Asia, anywhere you may be on the continent, you can catch the show regardless of the time zone. So it is early morning here, even earlier on the West Coast. And again, I am grateful that Miriam took the time to join us this morning. So Miriam, okay, I don't have any set questions that I ask, but there are some that kind of come up from interview to interview, and I usually start off asking, where did the writing begin? Is this something that you did as a child? Did it come later in life, or did you take it up in high school or college, or where did you begin this whole writing?
I really came to writing late in life. I think I always wanted to be a writer, but I never really sat down and wrote anything until, I was in my 30s. So, I don't know, I had manuals, journals that I kept just as something for me. And then a family member suggested, why don't you seem so interested in that? And so I decided to take a couple of courses after school, and it just came about, and I fell in love with my craft.
So, all right. So let's put it this way. Then, as a child, were you an avid reader? Did you like books as a child?
As a child, I did like reading.
Okay, because I asked that question because for me, working in education and having being an avid reader and loving books myself, there is a connection between reading and writing. And most of my authors, every now and again I might get one and say, I really didn't like to read when I was a kid, but most of my authors loved to read as a child, which I did. I'd love to read, but I never connected that I could also be a writer. And see, there's definitely a connection there, because the more you read, whenever you now begin to write, it just kind of flows. It just kind of comes out. So you actually started writing later. You said you wrote in journals. Was that like whenever you were a teenager or a youngster or older?
Oh, yeah. We used to have these books, and we used to write a question and then put numbers in it and pass it around to our friends. What do you think about this? And that was so interesting to me. So I always kept journals of that, and journals as my family traveled a lot. And it just became a thing that I kept. Wherever I went, I wrote about it.
So then, not even realizing what you were doing, you actually were becoming an author at that time as you were writing in the journals.
Right.
All right, so your book is Weaver.
Yes, it is.
And I'm looking at Elmina Johnstone, a young woman thought to be mentally slow, is thrust back to her small insular hometown in Elktown, Maryland. She expects nothing more than a lonely, unfulfilled life. Almina's passion is weaving, but her past is ugly. Unable to understand or articulate her needs, she hides her pain in the intricate stitching of her rugs. She becomes an easy target until one day, the day as she describes as the best day of her life, Almina is abandoned. Her isolation is broken when a new family moves in nearby. But the neighbors she comes to adore arrive with their own sordid history of violence, trauma, and sexual abuse that play out in a horrific murder. Left with motherless twins, Almina must make a desperate escape to keep them safe and make a new start in New Haven, Connecticut. But will Almina's tainted past disturb the peace she finds in the sanctity of her new home? So where'd the concept of Weaver come from?
Well, as a child, we used to make potholders on looms.
I remember those. I remember those as a child also.
And I made so many of them. My grandmother would sew them together as bath mats and as welcome mats and things. And she always said, you can weave anything. So it came from that. And then I felt like as I got older, I said, well, perhaps I could put figures and things into the weaving part of it. And so when I began to put this book together, I said, you know what? For Granny, I'm going to call this Weaver.
Makes all kinds of sense to me. And folks, in terms of naming and titling, it's interesting, Miriam, because I write music, and a lot of people ask me, where'd you get the title for that song? And where'd you get the title for that song? And a lot of times it is based on experiences. So to hear you say the title of the book came from the fact that you wove so many of the potholders as a child and to dedicate it to your grandmother, that makes a whole lot of sense. Now, you would know that, but the person walking in the bookstore, either going on to Kindle, wouldn't. But we as the authors and the ones who created, we know exactly what the titles mean. So as you're coming up with the storyline, because I know you're out of Maryland, and I see part of it takes place in Elktown. Mm-hmm. So is this kind of like what they call a faction, where part of it is fact, part of it is fiction, or is the whole thing just something that came up out of your imagination?
Well, part of it is fact, but my imagination just threw it out there. I mean, I went way past the norm. But I think it's a very good story, and I've been told people love it.
So you say your imagination went way out there. So I work with kids all the time, and I say this many instances as I'm talking to people, particularly whenever we start talking about imagination. I see too many youngsters, not all of them, but I see so many youngsters that really don't have an imagination these days, which I really do think they do. They just haven't tapped into it yet. But I think part of it is they don't have to have one based on everything is presented in front of them, whether it's on TV or whether it's in a video game or whether it's in real life, that there really isn't left for them to imagine because everything is in front of them. Now, that's my theory. I don't know if it's true or not, but your imagination, how did that develop? Again, I'm going to ask as we go back. Was that something that where you were imaginative as a little girl, or did that develop too as we went forward?
Living in the country, I believe people who live in rural areas, you have to make up your own games, your own things for your child to do. Just as I said with the weaving of the potholders and things, I was always making up games. My imagination grew into adulthood, I guess you might say. So that's where it came from.
All right, you're listening to The Reading Circle with Marc Medley right here on WP 88.7 FM and GoBrave.org. My guest this morning is Miriam Kelly Ferguson. She is the author of the novel Weaver, Weaver. I'm going to share some more information with you, but you know what to do. Get on the line. Let someone know that Miriam is on the line with me. We're talking about her book, Weaver.
The following message is about Medicaid and CHIP, free or low-cost health coverage for kids and teens. Enrollment is open year-round.
Hey, voice lady, give me the mic.
Okay.
Hey, DJ, let's switch up the music. That's better. So listen up, moms and dads out there. There are these programs called Medicaid and CHIP. They offer free or low-cost health coverage for kids. Things like doctor and dentist visits, prescriptions, and shots are covered. All the stuff that keeps kids like me healthy and in charge.
So, as you can tell, a covered kid is a confident kid. And it means confident parents, too. To learn more about affordable health coverage for your family, visit healthcare.gov or call 1-877-KIDS-NOW. That's 1-877-543-7669.
Yep, you could do something big for your family today because enrollment is open year-round.
This has been a message from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
And Sophia.
Hey, parents of children with asthma, here's another hit from the Breathe Easies.
Don't smoke in the house. Don't smoke in the house. Don't smoke around the kids in the house. Don't smoke in the car. Don't smoke in the house. Don't break my heart with your secondhand smoke in the kids and can trigger the asthma.
Preventing asthma attacks can be as simple as making your home and car smoke-free zones. For more Breathe Easy tips to help stop asthma attacks, go to noattacks.org. Brought to you by the EPA and the Ad Council.
You're listening to The Reading Circle with Marc Medley on Brave New Radio.
Yes, indeed, you are. You're listening to The Reading Circle with Marc Medley. We're actually into our 15th season now. We've been on the air 15 years. It has gone by so quickly. I can't believe it's 15 years. I remember the first show 15 years ago. At the time, the show was on Friday and Saturday nights from midnight to 1. And I can't believe 15 years have gone by. This June will be 15 years. It has gone by that quickly. I've met some wonderful people. Thank you. Wonderful people along the way. It's been a wonderfully rich experience to have met so many people over the 15-year period and to hear about so many different books and the writing styles and how they develop the characters and all those different things is always fascinating to me, which kind of leads me into my next question in terms of your character is Almina Johnstone. How did you come up with Almina?
Well, I started out what I want this character to portray. And I don't know, I had a friend that I was so annoyed with that she was very quiet. And one would think that maybe she has nothing to offer. But she was a genius in many, many ways. And I used her and switched it over and made her like slow and perceived naiveness. And it just grew out of there. And then being in several workshops helped me. My studies at Howard and at Morgan and in that workshop, the Hurston Wright workshop, I kind of developed it. I don't really know where all of it came from, but it kind of developed into what I took off of her.
So now you had the wherewithal to go take courses. And how did you go about searching what you were going to go or where you were going to go to school to take these writing courses? How did you come to that? Because you're one of the few people that I've heard say, well, you know what, I actually went back and took courses to do this. How did that process start for you?
Well, I mean, you know, you research, am I really able to do this? I'm one of the types that look into things before I just shoot off into it. And I submitted things, pieces, you know, that I thought were good. And I said, you know, what's the best one? And so some of this, I was denied several times. But Hurston Wright had a reputation of developing writers. And I said, okay. And after about the first time I was accepted, but I didn't go. And then the second time I was also accepted, I said, you know, this is a sign that maybe I should do this. And so I submitted a piece to them, and they said, sure, come on down. We missed you the last time. So, And I studied under T.R.E. Jones, and I studied under Bernice McFadden, and have had influential people in my literature life, like Krista Bonney. So it's been a ride ever since. And I'm so thankful for workshops like that.
Right.
That, help you and say, well, yeah, there's talent there. You can have talent, but you still need to know what to do with it.
Absolutely. And the reason I'm kind of parking on this point for a couple of minutes is because many in the listening audience feel they have a book in them, or either have been told the same thing. You know what? You need to write a book, and they have no idea how to get started in the process. And one of the ways, particularly if that's not something that you've been doing as a profession, is to go back and find and learn the mechanics, such as going to a workshop or a course or what have you, rather than just jumping out there. And another key word I heard you say was research. If it's the one thing that I can advise any of those of you in the audience who are thinking about writing a book, is do your homework and your research. Because when all is said and done, you're going to be putting a product out there with your name on it, and you want it to be correct. You don't want to have junk out there with your name associated with it. And when I say junk, I'm talking about grammatical errors. I'm talking about editing errors. I'm talking about anything that's going to make the book less than, or that's going to take away from the storyline. Because, Miriam, I've read books where the grammaticals were bad, or either there was a lot of typos or misspellings in it, and it took me away from the storyline. It became a distraction. So
it is. Readers, you lose your readers completely if you don't do your work. The story can be good. You not only need your craft, but you need everything involved. And people are in a hurry to get anything out there. There's a whole industry that you need to tap into and find out what's out there. It's just not a good story. The mechanics have to be right.
Absolutely. And again, I'm sharing this and we're staying here because I encourage you to really do, as she say, your home. And let me tell you why this is, because Miriam, as you probably know, years ago, before we had either the smaller publishing houses or self-publishing, if you went to one of the larger houses, when you talk rejections, I mean, you could get rejected hundreds of times before a company would say, all right, we're going to take your manuscript on. But in 2016, you don't have to go that route. You can do it yourself. You can self-publish. And a lot of people, like you just said, in a hurry, want to get something out there with their name on it, think they're going to be millionaires overnight because they wrote a book. They just throw anything into the market. And what that does is it actually winds up hurting them more than helping them. Because now you've put a piece of junk out there and has your name on there. And people are like, well, I'm not going to buy a book from that person again because, I tried reading the book and there was a bunch of errors, a bunch of mistakes, so forth and so on. So the fact that you even took the time not only to write the book and not only to find the publishing company, because I'm going to talk about that in a minute, but you actually took courses up front. What kind of like in the coursework or as a part of the workshop, what was kind of like the curriculum or the lessons that they covered?
Oh, they covered a vast number of things: character development, plot, how to show your point of view or your character's point of view, how to develop your voice and the character's voice, a voice that would enable and keep the reader involved in it, and how to switch your writing, to instantly know who's speaking without saying the person's name. I enjoyed that part quite well. And it was just amazing, the things that are behind the scenes that you learn that readers aren't aware of.
Absolutely.
But it all makes them enjoy your story.
Right. And that's what I was saying, even in our titles or what we name the song or the book or what have you, the reader in and of him or herself, they wouldn't know. But I was sharing with an author last week, or week before last rather, everything in terms of a book is done on purpose. There's nothing left to happenstance. I mean,
Right.
from
So
the
true.
colors that are chosen, to the title, to the photo that's on the cover, to the words that's on the back of the book, to the prologue, to the introduction. Everything is done by design, and that is to capture the attention of the reader. And then once you capture it, you got to keep it, because you don't want them to get halfway through your book and put it down and again say, well, I'm not buying anything from Miriam again. I couldn't get into that story. That you don't want. So everything has to be done by design. As a matter of fact, I'm looking here at the cover of your book, and I see, now, is that the same little girl on the left and the right, or is it two different girls?
That's the same little girl, because there are twins in here. There are twins in here.
See, that my point exactly. So there, right off the bat, that was done on purpose. That was not done by accident. It's done because everything sends a message, whether it's a conscious message or a subconscious message. Everything that's done sends a message. Even because, since you gave us the history of it, now even the coloring of the letters makes sense to me, because as a kid I did those potholders as well, and you had each one of the whatever they call the thing in the loom, in terms of the what do they call the strands? What do they call those? Like whenever when you're weaving the potholder, what do they call it?
Knitting spools.
Okay, so each one of the knitting spools, usually you have different. You usually don't do one color whenever you're doing a potholder or whatever. Usually it's multicolor. All right, so that to me leaped right out as soon as you said that, in terms of why the word weaver is multicolored. The letters in there, you have a red letter, a purple letter, green letter, and a blue letter. That's kind of like the colors that would be in the potholder.
Yes, it is.
So everything is signaling. So as you're now going through your character development, because you said that was part of the workshop, how did you come to develop your character? Because I've heard so many different stories about, I mean, people said they live with them, they eat with them, they sleep with them, they walk with them, they talk with them. They really do come alive. I've had situations where the author said, my original intent was to kill this character off, but I fell in love with the character and couldn't do it by the end of the story, and so forth and so on. How did you do your character development?
Oh, it's all of that and more. In fact, I had my daughter. She was reading through the story, and then she called me up. She said, "Mom, you killed the whole family now." My mother. So, it comes back to things that you experience. Sometimes you're walking around talking to yourself. Now, listen, Sadie, that's the character also. I'm telling you, you're getting out of hand.
Right. I've had other authors say exactly that. Let me see. I had one author that the character actually took over the book. That it was the mother, I believe. It was the mother or either the mother-in-law in the story. And she, just like you just said, you as the real person had to tell the fictional character, wait a minute, you're not going to take this over. But again, that's back to the imagination. But you really do begin to hear their voices. They really do come alive. And that makes for the best writing, because it's not as if you're writing about something that's in thin air. And in your mind as the author, they're real.
Yes.
If you've just joined us, you're listening to The Reading Circle with Marc Medley. We're heard live here each Saturday morning from 6 o'clock a.m. to 7 o'clock a.m. And we interview authors and let you know what's going on in the literary world. And this morning we're talking to Miriam Kelly Ferguson, and her book is Weaver. Don't you dare move. I'm going to share some more information with you, but you know what to do during this information sharing time. You are to get on all your social media sites and let someone know that Miriam's on the line with me. We're talking about her book, Weaver.
Welcome to the Hip Hop Shop. hip-hop shop. Let's break it down for him.
I'm DJ Nick Visco.
And I'm DJ Tone Dog.
And at the hip-hop shop, we're here to bring you hip-hop news,
interviews,
freestyles,
written,
new and old music from the 80s,
90s,
2000s,
and 2010s.
Keep it locked right here on WPSC 88.7 FM, Brave New Radio on Tuesday nights from 9 to 11 p.m.
You're not going to want to miss this.
Want to expand your horizons? Want to broaden your mind? Well, listen to the only show of its kind. Listen to The Reading Circle.
We bring you what's going on in the world of reading, in the world of books. Sometimes the book may be from 20, 30 years ago, because the thing about books, they are timeless, particularly if there's a good message. And then there are times when we do books that are hot off the press, that were just released.
Listen to The Reading Circle every Saturday morning from 6 a.m.
The Reading Circle with your host, Marc Medley.
Only on WP 88.7 FM.
The Reading Circle on WP 88.7 FM.
Had a chance to listen to the music for a couple of minutes. Again, my guest is Miriam Kelly Ferguson, and we're talking about her book, Weaver. And we've been walking through how Weaver came about. So talk to us a little bit about Miriam, and don't give the ending away, because we want folks to get the book to try to find out what the ending is going to be. But tell us a little bit about, I read the synopsis that is on Amazon, but what is the book really about?
Okay, it's a story of it's a country story, and it's the story of a young woman who's perceived to be mentally slow, but really she's naive to a sense, and she comes about rug making, as I said, in my lifetime, through potholders, and then she decides to put her life in these rugs because she has no communication with the town that she's in, because she's perceived to be the town nitwit, that is. And so her life, and instead of putting birds and frogs and different colors, she puts things that happen in her life into these weaving rugs that she has. And we journey through life in Eastern Maryland, or Elktown, Maryland, which is just outside of Eastern Maryland, all the way to a tragedy that happens when she finally befriends a family, and all the way to New Haven, Connecticut. and the life trials that she goes through. And it's amazing. And these are the travels that she has on the bus, even in an airplane, which she refuses to get on. But it makes for a good story, and I've been told it's realistic.
That's a good thing. So that means you keep your reader engaged. In terms of the folks that you said influenced you or that you had in the seminar or the workshop, did they have an opportunity once you were done to get a copy of the book, or did you send them one?
Oh, yes, I did. I wanted their opinion of it. And, yes, I've gotten some good reviews back from them. And they were all a part of it. I mean, I wouldn't have been able to put it together, especially the Harlem Writers Guild was a good part of it. Week after week, they heard me lament about this book and how I was having trouble turning a character around, and it really does help you, because we write in solitude, but it takes a whole community to put a book together.
Absolutely, which leads to my next question. When were you doing, or when did you do your best writing? For some, it's very early in the morning. For some, it's very late at night. Some say on the bus. Some say on the subway or on the street.
This is the time that I do my best, early morning. And, of course, I'm the type that walks around with the 3x5 cards, and I might make a note on someone that I see in the street or on the subway. But I can't write that way. I have to be like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. All right, come on, talk to me.
In terms of, and you just brought up another very good point. For those of you, again, aspiring or either in the process, Miriam brought up a very good point just now in terms of keeping a notepad or something with you at all times so that you can jot down an idea or observation that may come to you, because you never know when it's going to come. And whenever you say, okay, you know what, I just thought of that, I'll remember it later. No, you won't. Because we get so busy between now and whenever later is that when you now try to go back to what it was you wanted to remember, it doesn't flow to you immediately. So the best thing, because that's why they tell you, Miriam, to keep a glass of water and a notepad near your bed at night. Because if you get a revelation in a dream or while you're sleeping, get up, write it down. Don't say, well, I'll do it in the morning, because it won't be there. It's the same thing if something happens to you during the day. Oh, I'll write about it later. No. Have the pen and paper or a little notepad or 3x5 card or whatever it is, whatever works for you, so that you can jot down ideas and you have them with you so that later, whenever you now want to write about or either include it in your story, it's there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so true.
So the Congressional Black Caucus, what did you do with them?
Oh, it was just a book exporium, and I got to read from my novel, and it was a wonderful experience. And then afterwards, it was a dinner. Being from having a workshop at Howard University, this invitation was through that workshop. So it was a good experience, a very good experience for me.
The caucus members were actually there, or some of them were there?
Yes, some of them were there, and that evening we had a dinner affair with most of them.
Ah, all right. So that's a wonderful experience. I mean, it's a unique experience. Not everybody gets that. So,
yeah.
The fact that you had that experience, that's great. So, like I told you early on, I don't have set questions per se, because I develop my questions based on our conversation. Like as we're talking, my next question comes up. But there are some that I have for every interview. Like the first one I asked, kind of like, where did it all begin? One that I usually asked as we move toward the end of the interview is kind of like, okay, I'm looking at Weaver. Now, Weaver is available in paperback or either hardcover as well as the electronic version, or is it just electronic?
Oh, no, it's available in both, and it's available on Amazon.com. It's also available in Barnes & Nobles. Thank you.
and see,
and I'm real proud of that.
I know that's right, because I'm going to give you, in about 10 minutes or so, I'm going to give you an opportunity to promote, and you'll be able to say anything but the price. And where I'm going with this question, though, is the reason I asked, was it just electronic or if it was in book format also, is When that box came to your door, now listening audience, you know what this question is going to be. When that box came to your door and you opened it and you saw that word Weaver in different colors and you saw the two little girls on the front and you saw your name, Miriam Kelly Ferguson, there on the top, what was that experience like for you?
Oh, I don't. I can really explain it. It's like, wow. I was thrilled. I was thrilled. All my hard work seemed to come to pass right at that minute. There were tears, hollering, screaming. I did it. It's amazing how much joy you get out of it. This is mine. It came from me, and I hope you enjoy it,
Absolutely right.
And then the fear set in. Who did I put in this book? Oh, my goodness.
You say the fear set in.
It's been all mine until now. It's really out there. Oh, my goodness.
But in terms of, now that is one standard question I ask, because having had that experience myself, I know exactly what people mean when you say it's so hard to put that particular moment in words. And it is, because it's been a process, however long it took, because it varies in terms of coming to the finished product. For some people say I wrote a book in 6 months. Like, wow. Others say I wrote it in 6 years. Right, exactly. Others say it took me 6 years. Some say it took 10 years. Some say it took 3 years. Some say it took a year. Some say, like I said, every now and again. Right. See, there you go. 4 years. And for some, like I said, they 6 months. Like, okay, but when you come to the end of the process and that shipment comes to your door, or wherever you pick it up from, and you open that box and you pick up your final product, because for those, again, in the listening audience who are aspiring, you have drafts along the way. You have, whether it's on the computer screen or whether it's, written or drawn, you have drafts. But that's still different than when you get the real deal, the final product that's going to go into a customer's hand. It is different. And when you get something, as Miriam just said, it has your name on it, like, this is something that came through me. When you now have that book in your hand, you've opened and flipped through a few pages and begun reading it over, did you ever have the experience of, wow, I don't even remember writing that. Wow, that was me. I don't even remember when did you have that experience at all?
Of course. Where was I? I was in a good place that day. Oh, my goodness, the darkness spots that I go to. Who is that? And you know that you wrote it, but, it's like certain scenes I'm discovering my own self in, It's amazing, and there is no greater joy than to have something come from you and be awed by it.
That's true.
Than being afraid too.
Well, that was an interesting point you brought up, because when you said fear, and you took it to a place that didn't dawn on me until you just said it, and that was, wait a minute, who or what? And not necessarily that I called anybody by name, but is there enough characteristics that somebody would be able to figure out who I might be talking about? Right.
Yes.
And I never thought about that. I thought when you said fear, I thought the fear would be whether or not the book was going to sell or not, and certainly whether people would like it or not. That one that leaped right off me. But the one that I didn't think of was the one were people going to think who these characters might be?
Or yes. And I did have some family members saying, oh no, that couldn't be me. Who are you thinking about? And I'm reading the chapter about core, and I have my family member. One of my family members are large. She's a big lady, and she was saying, "Oh, okay, that wouldn't be me, would it?" I'm so glad that she came to say, "Oh, I thought that was me," and tell this here part.
Well, I am laughing so heartily at that because particularly on my father's side, on the Medley side, a lot of the women on the Medley side are full-figured, and I'm being kind.
Yeah.
And so if I had to write a book and describe any of them, they would be in the same boat. Matter of fact, they would probably be wondering which one of us is he talking about. But
and I really wasn't thinking of her.
But that's my point.
I wasn't thinking of her, and I made the woman so likable. You know, it was all right. It worked out for me.
Oh my goodness. But yeah, that's an interesting point as well. And because I've had authors, again, many have written Christian fiction or something along those lines, but in the book may have some racy scenes or gory scenes or whatever. Yeah. And I would always ask them, well, how did your congregants or your fellow parishioners or those who are in your church, your folks that are in the church with you, how did they receive what you wrote within the book? And a lot of people would say, well, many of them thought it was me and just stopped talking to me, or they thought I was writing about my own lifestyle and I got excommunicated from the church, or this. I was like, oh wow. One young lady, she was not writing about herself, but it was kind of like a book about like a promiscuous young lady, and she said her neighbors read the book and started looking at her cockeyed and cross-eyed.
Yeah, because people will assume, how do you know these things? You know,
right?
If it's not you, how do you know this is too realistic? You know,
But see, that's where the imagination comes back in, and that's where, like you said, and you went to a class, so you can pretty much come up with just about anything because that's what the creative process is all about. That you can, I may not necessarily have experienced it myself, but either I can research it or either I can imagine what it's like and put it down on paper. It doesn't necessarily have to be you. And you're right, people automatically assume that you're talking about yourself.
Right. Or them.
Right, exactly. Or them. Especially, like, again, if the characteristics of the scenario is something similar to what might have happened, they do. I remember one time interviewing Omar Tyree, and I asked Omar, because I think Omar is in the Washington area, somewhere down there. I think Omar is down in that area too. I asked Omar, well, how do you come up with your characters? And he kind of said something similar to what you said about 3x5 cars. He said, I watch a lot of movies and I watch a lot of people. I watch people in the street. I watch people in the subway. I watch people. And so that's where I come up with my character. So it doesn't necessarily have to be somebody you know. It might be somebody that you observed with your 3x5 card.
Mm-hmm. And you've added your own nuances and tics and things and things that a person might do in the situation that you have them in.
Right.
So, you totally come up with someone new, even though the setting and the point of view and everything may be ascribed to them. That it's amazing how at the Guild,
right?
I am constantly battering between authors. No, that couldn't possibly happen, but it did happen. Right.
That's right.
Well, you got to set this up better than that because I don't understand it. So, and that all helps you.
Exactly.
In your craft. So somebody that writes something in 6 months, they may be a genius, but I suggest you should put a little more time in it.
Right. Absolutely. And in terms of the publishing aspect of it, because I know you with Eartha Watts Hicks, correct?
Mm-hmm.
You're with Eartha. How did you? Because Eartha's been a guest on the show as well. How did you and Eartha connect?
We kept bumping into each other in workshops. Eartha went to the first Hurston Wright workshop at Howard University the same time I was supposed to go. And I didn't go that time. And then years later, I met her at, I think it was at City College, and we were in a workshop. And we kept bumping into each other. And then later on, she suggested that I submit to the Harlem Writers Guild. And after about 3 years of bumping into each other, we said, this must have, we read each other's novel, we read through it. she was enthused about mine. I was enthused about hers, and she was journeying on to publishing, and I was just submitting all over, anywhere. So, and that's how we totally hooked up. And she was into, I didn't want to be a self-published writer.
Right.
And I was trying to go the traditional route, but
right.
That is. And she had published her novel out, and I said, well, you know, would you be interested in taking me on as an indie author? And that's how that came about. And she took me on, and I'm very pleased.
Well, I tell you, like I said, I'm to the point now where I don't think anything happens in life again, by coincidence or by just happenstance. I think everything happens for a reason, and there's a divine hand guiding that. So the fact that you and Eartha kept bumping into each other, that was by divine intervention, if you will, or by divine design. And so Eartha had contacted me and said, well, I have a client that, would you have her? Sure. I mean, because I have a well enough established relationship with most of the people who's been on the show that usually when they recommend somebody, I take it sight unseen. It's like, hey, if you're recommending them, they're free to come on the show. So when I got Eartha's email a couple months back, I said, yeah, by all means. And we set the date, and this is how we're here. But that's interesting in terms of the publishing piece, because that it can be a difficult piece in and of itself, is getting it published. And I'm looking here again. I don't have the hard copy in my hand, but just looking at the piece that's on Amazon, I can see it's a quality job right off the bat. And I know Eartha, so I know it's a quality job. So, all right, we're down to the last few minutes, and this is where I was telling you I always give the author the mic for them to promote any book signings, any shout-outs, any people you want to shout out, any book signings, or where you're going to be, or your next project, or how they can get a hold of you, your websites, or your Facebook pages, or anything you want to share at this point. The mic is yours before we close out.
Oh, thank you so much. As we've been saying, the name of the book is Weaver. It is available on Amazon.com. It is in paperback and on Kindle. I will be in the Ohio area in the month of April. I believe I arrive in Ohio on the 14th of April for a 3-day festival book symposium, and it will be downtown Columbus, Ohio. I also will be in New York on April the 2nd, I think it is. We are celebrating. Harlem Writers Guild is having a function at the Schomburg on April 2nd. I will also be there. And I don't have any other things that I'm appearing at, but I would like you to pick the book up. I think you'll thoroughly enjoy it. Its name is Weaver, and as I said, it's on Amazon.com, available at Barnes & Nobles, and it comes in paperback and on Kindle. Thank you so much for this interview.
Well, Miriam, I've had a ball chatting with you for the last 55 minutes or so, and I wish you absolutely nothing but the best. I will be in touch with you as well as Eartha. I'll record the show, and then I send out a link to you that you can use however you'd like. You can email it to people or put it on websites or whatever you'd like to do with it.
You're doing so well. 15 years.
Yeah, this is the 15th season. Had no idea when this started that we'd be on the air this long. I love it. I really do. It's a passion. It's not my day job, quote unquote. I wouldn't mind if it was my day job, but still, I'm just thankful for the opportunity that I get to do it once a week here. And I've met some wonderful people such as yourself. So I wish you absolutely nothing but the best with Weaver and any forthcoming projects.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right, have a wonderfully blessed day.
You too.
Thank you very much. Take care. Well, that brings us to the end of another reading circle with Marc Medley. As I continue to share with you, we get together on Saturday mornings from 6 to 7, early on Saturday morning. And I'll tell you what, if you think people are not up or this time of morning, they are. As a matter of fact, if you turn on your radio, there are, or your television for that matter, there are shows on at 6 o'clock in the morning. And not all of them are pre-recorded. Many of them are live. So this, for some people, This is their time of day. Now, this normally is not my time of day, but on Saturday mornings, I make it my time of day. But for many people, as you heard Miriam say, her time for writing is 4, 5, 6 in the morning. For many people, this is their time of day. And then, as I said, we're web streaming, so we are heard all around the world. So overseas, over in France or over in Europe, while it's 7 o'clock in the morning here, it's 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon there. So for them, this is right in the middle of their afternoon. So if they're listening over there, they have the opportunity, in the middle of the afternoon. It's not early morning for them because we are heard all around the world. And the people who are over in Hawaii, over there, well, we're, or Guam or somewhere. Guam is way ahead of us. But back in Hawaii, they're way behind us. They have the opportunity to catch the show again whenever I archive it on YouTube. Because if you go to my YouTube channel, you can catch any of the shows there. I put it on YouTube. It's the audio, even though there are pictures, there are still photos throughout the video. It really is the audio version of the show. It's the recorded version. So if you do miss because you didn't get up early, you can always go to my YouTube channel. Just put in there, when you get to YouTube in the search bar, just put in my name, Marc Medley, and my channel will come up. The actual channel name is Reading Circle 01, but the easiest way is just go into the YouTube search bar and just put in my name, Marc Medley, and my YouTube channel will come up. Well, it is the 7 o'clock hour.